The late Anthony Bourdain, late in his time at the Travel Channel, had a show called The Layover for a couple of years. The idea of the show is to show you some of the best things in various cities around the world if you only had 48 hours to spend there. One of the first cities that he did was London, which I think is the ideal candidate for such a concept. We started our trip to Europe in London, and our time there reinforced my belief that it is the perfect jumping off place for your European adventures. In this video, I'll talk about why. The first reason is that, relative to the rest of Europe, London is inexpensive to reach from North America, and reaching the rest of Europe from London can be ridiculously inexpensive. We came to London on a very cheap points redemption on American Airlines. You have to be careful if many points redemptions on nonstop flights carry hefty fees. To avoid those, you can connect through a hub in the US, as we did through Charlotte, and have a minimal $5.60 fee to pay beyond the points. In all likelihood, you're going to be arriving in Heathrow Airport, which is very well connected to central London by rail. The Piccadilly line on the Underground will be the cheapest and take the longest. The Elizabeth line will be faster and somewhat more expensive depending on where you're going. And the Heathrow Express train goes straight to Paddington Station, is the fastest and most expensive of all. London has an extensive and comprehensive public transit system that's easy to use. You just tap in with your credit card when you enter and then tap out with the same card to exit. Having said that, it's not a particularly cheap system. We spent $72 in 3 days, but that included our trip into London from Heathrow and a ride on the London cable car over the Thames River. There are daily caps on how much you can spend, but I believe those are roughly at £20, which is perhaps a lot to spend for transit in 1 day. Now, if you arrive at Heathrow Airport, if you want to save money, you should leave from one of the other airports which have London in their name. There are no fewer than 6 airports with London in their name, but only Heathrow and London City, which you almost certainly won't use, are within the M25 loop around London. The cheapest onward fares are to be found at London Stansted, London Luton, or London Gatwick, which also has flights from the US. Each of these airports can be reached by rail or bus from London, but are a solid 45 to 90 minutes away depending on where you start and how and when you make the journey. Stansted is a Ryanair hub, Luton is home to Wizz Air and EasyJet, and Gatwick is a major hub for EasyJet, and Ryanair operates out of all 3 of these airports. If you've never flown on any of these airlines, think Spirit or Frontier in the US. The base fares are cheap, sometimes unbelievably so, but it'll come only with room for a personal item under the seat in front of you. If you want to have a carry-on, check a bag, or pick your seat, that all costs extra. But even with those extras thrown in, we found the flights to be cheaper than US counterparts for the same distance flown. And these airlines fly all over Europe, including directly to a number of secondary cities, which could easily save you money. The second reason London makes such a good jumping off point for European adventures is that it's somewhat familiar, even if you've never been there. You no doubt have seen London portrayed on television and films countless times, and there are familiar and many major landmarks like Big Ben or Buckingham Palace or the London Eye. London is much more than that, I assure you, but being around those familiar things helps ease you into being overseas. Beyond that, as you might guess, they speak English. Now, it's perhaps not exactly like you speak English, but you won't have any difficulty making yourself understood. You should be able to pay for everything you need while you're there with a credit card, which eliminates the need to fiddle with currency exchange, except perhaps for any tips to any tour guides you may have. Wendy spent 10 days in London last year while she went to see Wimbledon, and the only thing she needed cash for were tips during that whole 10-day time. The final reason London makes such a good jumping off point is that it's a wonderful destination unto itself, one of the most visited cities in the entire world. Those landmarks I mentioned really are worth seeing, and there are many more besides. There's so much to see and do, you likely wouldn't cover it all in 2 weeks. For my part, I've never spent more than 4 days at a time in London, and I've taken little bites of it each time that I've been there. The most recent time we chose to stay in Stratford, which is to the east of central London. It was well connected by rail to the rest of London, and we stayed at the Hyatt Regency on a points redemption, which was very reasonable. From there, we visited Greenwich, which is home to the Royal Observatory, from which we get Greenwich Mean Time, and the National Maritime Museum. And those added just several new places to our London experiences. Stratford also had a direct bus connection to London Stansted Airport, which was less than a 5-minute walk from our hotel. The bus ride was considerably less expensive than Stansted Express trains, which leave from Liverpool Street Station, and had us in the airport in 45 minutes. Having that ease of access made our onward journey much simpler, and the low fare we paid much more satisfying. If you're planning a trip to Europe, look into starting it in London. You may end up saving money, and you'll add something wonderful to your experience. One word of caution, however, is that the UK started requiring US citizens to apply for what is essentially a visa that costs £10 before arriving in the UK, even if only to change planes. But that is a simple app-based process that takes a few minutes and does little to take away from London as the perfect place to begin your European adventures. Thanks for watching, and until next time, wander out.